This June, 7 of the world's most powerful nations sat down at a lake in France. Then they stood up, and they could not agree on a single shared page. No communique, no common signature, just separate statements, issued topic by topic, for the second year running. To understand the real story, you must understand the page they could not sign. A summer evening, 1975, a French chateau. 6 men signed a promise to face the world together. That page became a ritual. Every year they met, argued, and signed one shared statement. For 50 years, through recessions and crises, it kept coming. It sounds like paperwork. It wasn't. The page was proof the West could say one thing about one problem. This year in Évian, that proof never came. The table was set, the cameras ready, and the shared page simply never arrived. Forget the handshakes and the smiles. Watch instead for the one page they could not bring themselves to sign. The group of 7 was born from fear. In 1973, an oil shock hit the West. Prices spiked, factories slowed. Inflation tore through ordinary households. The largest economies realized something uncomfortable. No single country could steady the storm alone. So in 1975 they began to meet. The United States, Japan, Germany, France, Britain, Italy. Canada joined a year later. For decades the idea worked. When the system shook, these 7 moved together. Steadying markets, managing crises, signing one page to prove they agreed. That page mattered far beyond the room. Markets read it, rivals studied it, allies leaned on it. The West still had a shared plan. This June, France gathered them again. Évian on Lake Geneva. The water was calm. The choreography was flawless. But choreography hit a problem. The host had toyed with inviting China's leader. One ally objected at once, and Japan warned it would split the group. A club built to lead the world couldn't agree who belonged in the room. So the invitation was quietly dropped. Some say a missing signature is nothing new. France itself did exactly that once. But there's a difference between a choice made once and a habit. 2 years without one signature is not a style choice. It is a pattern. And patterns reveal what people will not say aloud. Could these 7 still act as one? Or just 7 countries sharing a photograph? The answer arrived in pieces. To understand the fear in that room, start with one number. Last year, one country ran a record trade surplus, around $1.2 trillion. That country was China. Analysts call what's happening China Shock 2.0, a wave of cheap advanced exports. Cars, machines, batteries, solar panels, all flooding Western markets far faster than those markets can possibly adjust. France's own president warned this year these exports were, in his words, killing a large part of European industry. The numbers are stark. Europe's goods deficit with China now runs well over 300 billion euros a year, and it is still widening. This is the danger beneath the summit. Not a war, a flood. And underneath it, a deeper fear about control. To see where this fear comes from, step back 15 years to a quiet clash most of the world barely noticed. In 2010, Japan and China clashed over disputed islands. Within days, China quietly choked off its rare earth exports. The very materials Japanese factories needed to run. Rare earths are a small group of metals you will never actually see. But they sit hidden inside almost everything advanced: phones, electric motors, wind turbines, and guided systems. That moment taught the West a lesson it never forgot. A supplier you depend on can become a switch, and someone else holds it. Japan recovered, but the message landed in every Western capital. Next time, the switch might not flip back. And the next target might not be Japan. This is no longer history. In 2025, China tightened its grip again on the magnets and metals at the heart of modern industry, parts almost no machine can run without. Picture a jet engine. To stop its blades melting in flight, they're coated with a rare metal called yttrium. When China's exports slowed, the firms that build those engines were suddenly left rationing what little they still had left. One material, one supplier on the far side of the world, and factories everywhere else, quietly holding their breath. Imagine the thing you built your living around. Now imagine one country, far away, can switch off the part that makes it work. That is why this summit happened. Not for the scenery. The promise that you can buy what you need when you need it no longer feels safe. And who actually pays when a flood like this lands? Not the leaders posing in Évian. Think of the Mercedes plant at Sindelfingen in southern Germany, one of the most advanced car factories on Earth. Around 19,000 people build vehicles there. A town, in effect, built around a single industry. Starve it of parts, and the strain lands on workers first. The same story repeats across England's industrial heartland and northern Italy. Different towns, the same single thread holding all of them up. It reaches well beyond Europe. An Australian mine digging the raw ore, an Indian plant climbing the value chain. Each sits on the same map. And here is what changed everything. For decades, the West treated trade as settled. You bought the cheapest part from whoever made it best. China's embargo on Japan broke that assumption. A supply chain is also a leash, and whoever holds it holds power. So the leaders did what leaders do. They announced a plan, a declaration with a single goal. Break the world's dependence on one supplier of critical minerals, the rare earths and magnets inside almost every advanced machine. And the numbers were real. Since the start of the year, the group counted nearly 200 new projects, around 64 billion euros of investment. The target was just as concrete. Cut reliance on any single outside supplier below 60%. The goal? Below 60% by 2030, and in time, an ambition of reaching fully half. To run it, they launched a new alliance, linked to the world's main energy agency, a platform to fund mines, refine metals, and pool reserves. The idea is right. The problem is timing. Mines take years to open, refineries longer. The dependence is here today. On paper, this is what unity looks like. A shared threat, a shared plan, a shared number. The announcement that reassures a market. But read the fine print, and the unity thins. The alliance they signed is not binding. It is a statement of shared intent. No country is forced to do anything by it, and one country was not content to wait inside it. The United States wanted something sharper. It already guarantees its own producers a guaranteed price floor, around $110 a kilo for the metal at the heart of every magnet, nearly double China's going rate. It wanted allies to adopt the same model, a promised floor, so these minerals could never be sold cheap enough to kill a Western mine. The others balked, wary of handing Washington that much control, letting one ally price minerals the whole bloc depends on. But look at it from Washington's side for a moment, because uncomfortable as it is, the logic here is not madness. An alliance opens mines in a decade. The shortage is here now. Officials concluded wild price swings are a weapon, designed to bankrupt any rival mine before it opens. Against that, a shared press release is no defense. A price guaranteed in law is. From where Washington sits, this is not abandoning the alliance. It is refusing to bet its industry on one. So America stopped waiting. It is now signing its own binding deals, one at a time, with partners like Australia and Japan, on its own terms. It had already moved at home, building a vast reserve it calls Project Vault, and moving alone. Look closely at the deal they celebrated. The shared page is non-binding. The real deals are being signed alone, in private. That is the pattern under the photograph. They agreed loudly on the goal. They split quietly on the method. And the most powerful member is already building its own way out, quietly, on its own terms, without waiting for the rest. So picture two documents on the same table. One is the shared declaration, loud, optimistic, and binding on no one. The other is a set of private American deals, quiet, specific, and binding in law. The first is for the cameras, the second shapes the market. Here is the part most people watching the summit missed. The cracks were not only in the fine print. Sometimes the cracks were said out loud, and the loudest one of all came before the summit had even properly begun. This part is not about systems or supply chains. It is about how these 7 allies now treat each other. France charges a small tax on the largest technology firms, 3% of their digital revenue. Most of those firms are American. Hours before flying to the summit, the American president issued a warning. Drop the tax or face a tariff. A 100% tariff on French wine and champagne, enough, in theory, to roughly double their price overnight. Read that plainly. The American president threatened to double the price of his host's signature export on his way to that host's own summit. France's president answered carefully. He called for firm but respectful talks. Tariffs, he said, help no one, not even America. The tax was never the real point. France says big tech should pay where it earns. Washington sees a strike at American firms. 2 allies, 1 rule, opposite conclusions entirely. And what truly makes it sting is the timing of it. The threat came hours before the host welcomed his guest. Out in the open, for everyone in the world to read. This clash did not come from nowhere. For years, Washington has treated allies as rivals at the trade table. Tariffs on steel, tariffs on cars, threats that arrive overnight. For a club built on facing outsiders together, a strange new habit. The pressure is no longer only on the rivals outside the room. It is on the friends inside it. Think what that means for a smaller ally. In a room of 7, you have partners. One-on-one with Washington, you have a negotiation you will lose. The quiet shift. The G7 once let middle powers face the world together. Now each is pulled aside, alone. And that is exactly why the shared page disappeared. You cannot sign one statement when each member is cutting its own private deal. The missing communiqué is simply the visible mark of every single member now quietly negotiating apart. In a room of 7, you have allies. Alone across the table from the largest economy, you have only the price you can pay. Now, allies have always argued. A summit is, in a sense, a family, and every family fights. But there's a difference. Arguing over the wording of a statement is ordinary. Threatening each other's industries on the first morning is not. You could see it in who got no meeting at all. Canada's leader left Évian without a formal sit-down. The 2 countries' entire trade relationship now faces a deeply uncertain future. 2 neighbors, the closest of allies for generations. And somehow no time on the entire schedule for the one conversation that mattered most of all. And yet, here is the strange part. The same summit could still move fast when the danger was sharp. To see how, follow the oil, because the clearest answer at Évian ran right through a narrow lane of water. For months, a standoff had threatened the Strait of Hormuz, a narrow shipping lane. Roughly a fifth of the world's oil once passed through daily. If that lane closes, oil prices spike everywhere. Petrol, heating, the price of moving goods, felt worldwide within weeks. For economies already nervous about inflation, that's a nightmare. A single choke point, far away, raising the price of almost everything at home. So calming, it was not charity. It was shared self-interest, and that is why the seven moved together. At the summit, the leaders backed a deal to ease the standoff, a 14-point framework to reopen the strait and let shipping pass freely again. The moment the lane looked safe, oil prices eased, and that small drop unlocked something much larger. For years, the West had hesitated to fully sanction Russian oil and gas. They feared sending energy prices and inflation soaring at home. The Gulf deal quietly removed that fear. The leaders called it the right moment to tighten Russia's energy sanctions. And they said exactly why. Because the American president had personally delivered the deal that reopened the strait itself. Watch how fast they move on the burning crisis. Then watch how slowly they move on the question of who leads. Follow that chain once more. It is the cleverest move of the summit. A calmer Gulf means cheaper oil. Cheaper oil means less inflation risk, and less inflation risk lets the West squeeze Russia's energy money without punishing its own voters. One crisis, solved in the Gulf, quietly unlocked a major decision on the other side of the world. This is the G7 at its sharpest, a fast, clever chain agreed in days. When the problem is urgent and concrete, these seven still think as one. And it didn't stop there. On Ukraine, they went further than in months, unanimous support and licensed production of interceptors. There were quieter wins too, far from the cameras. For the first time, the group made fighting cancer a shared priority. They agreed on rules to keep children safer online, and they found common ground on how to adopt artificial intelligence safely. Notice the pattern in that list: a burning strait, a disease, children online, a new technology to handle with care. These are problems with a clear shape and a shared answer. On those, the seven still converge, fast and without much fuss. The fractures came elsewhere, on the slow, structural questions. Who sets minerals' price? Who writes the rules? Who actually leads? Those questions have no tidy answer, so they got none. For a moment, the easy wins made it look like the old G7, 7 nations, one direction. And then, in a single unguarded second, the microphones caught what the polished stage had been hiding. Before the show of unity, a live microphone caught France's president telling Ukraine's president, "Yesterday we had a difficult discussion." And as the final session opened, the American president set the tone with 3 words of his own: "I'm the boss." Hold those 2 moments together: a difficult discussion and "I'm the boss." The sound of unity managed, not shared. The smile in the photograph was real. So was the open microphone. Decide for yourself which one was telling the truth. So what actually happened at Évian? A great deal, in truth, more than its critics admit. A minerals alliance worth tens of billions, a deal to calm a shipping lane, a renewed promise on Ukraine, a first ever pledge to fight cancer together. These outcomes are not nothing. On the fast, burning crises, the G7 still genuinely moved together. Anyone calling this summit a total failure is simply not reading it honestly. The wins were real, and they mattered. But it did all that as powerful countries reacting to crises, not as a single body agreeing on the future. It converged on the urgent, it fractured on the structural, and for the second year running, it could not sign one shared page. That is the quiet shift. The G7 was built to lead the world. At Évian, it managed it instead. A leader sets the direction. A manager handles the emergencies. Watch which one the world's richest club has quietly become. Here is the detail that gives it away. Around the G7's table at Évian sat the leaders of Brazil, India, South Korea, Egypt, and Kenya. Think what that admits. To stay relevant, the Club of Seven had to widen its own table. The richest democracies cannot set the agenda alone. Look who they needed. India came to Évian not as a supplicant, but as a rising power they cannot ignore. 1 billion plus people, climbing the very same value chain these critical minerals run through. A rising power in its own right. So the next era's rules won't be written at a table like Évian's, but in bilateral deals and larger rooms. Larger rooms, where rising powers sit as equals, not guests. A club that can't agree among 7 will struggle to lead a world of 20. The summit didn't fail. It revealed what it has become. The real contest runs far deeper and more physical. Not armies, not summits, but power itself. The electricity that will run the intelligence age and decide who leads it. The G7 could no longer hold that conversation, so others hold it instead, and almost no one is watching. 50 years ago, 6 men signed 1 page. This year, 7 could not. That unsigned page is the real story. Read it and see what comes next.